Well, welcome to C Files, folks, the place where Bible ignorance goes to die. We are not going to be ignorant of the Bible on this channel. Uh, Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Now, we are in the book of Esther. The book of Esther is an Old Testament book, and it takes place during the time period when Israel was in captivity. In 586 BC, Judah went into captivity as Babylon took them into captivity. 721 BC, Israel went into captivity as Babylon took them into captivity. As you recall, after Solomon, as a part of the judgment of God, because Israel walked away from the Lord, the kingdom split into Israel and Judah, the northern and the southern kingdom. Both kingdoms are now in captivity in the book of Esther. But it's not Babylon that they're in, it's Persia. Because during the time of their captivity, which spanned I want to say 400 years, they no, not four, it wasn't 400 years. What was it? Anyway, it was a it was definitely a couple of generations. They the Babylon was taken over by Persia. Okay. So now they're in Persia. Esther is a Jewish woman. She had no father, no mother. In other words, they didn't know who her father or mother was. She hadn't she had Mordecai. Mordecai took her in as and became her uncle and raised her. And the king of Persia had a rebellion that occurred against him by the queen. So he was going to replace that queen with a different queen. And Esther was chosen to be his new queen. Now, there was a plot to kill the king, King Ahasuerus. And Mordecai discovered the plot and he warned the king through Esther of that plot, and that was thwarted. So the king was able to put a stop to that. So that's basically chapters 1 and 2 of the book of Esther. These are historic events that have occurred. Now, chapter 3, Haman, um, the king's right-hand man, the second highest in authority in the kingdom, is plotting a conspiracy against the Jews. And we'll read about that here in chapter 3. Now, I need to tell you something about the book of Esther that the vast majority of people don't know. There is a fulfillment of prophecy in the book of Esther. And to find out what that is, you're going to have to stay with this channel until we get to that chapter. All right. Chapter 3. After these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princesses who were with him. And all the king's servants who were within the king's gate bowed and paid homage to Haman, for so the king had commanded concerning him. But Mordecai would not bow or pay homage. Then the king's servants who were within the king's gate said to Mordecai, "Why do you transgress the king's commandment?" Now it happened when they spoke to him daily, and he would not listen to them, that they told it to Haman to see whether Mordecai's words would stand. For Mordecai had told them that he was a Jew. When Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow to pay him homage, Haman was filled with wrath. But he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had told him of the people of Mordecai. Instead, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews who were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, the people of Mordecai. I'm going to tell you with the prophecy. This is the setup for the events that were prophesied in Ezekiel 38 and 39. The vast majority of Christians believe that prophecy is future to us. It's not, it's past fulfilled. And the fulfillment of that prophecy is right here in the book of Esther. This is the setup for the events that would bring about that war. And it was a big one. It spanned the entire kingdom of Persia. So Ezekiel 38 and 39, what many people call Armageddon, was fulfilled right here in Esther. And I'll bring up Gary DeMar at some point during this series in Esther, and I'm going to show you how Ezekiel 38 and 39 is connected to what happened right here with these events that were set up to attack the Jews. All right, verse 8. Let's see, where are we? Verse 7. Does that shock you, by the way? Because nobody's ever said that to you, or nobody's ever taught that to you or told you. Stay with me. I'll show you how it works. In the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is the lot, before Haman to determine the day and the month until it fell on the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. Then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, "There's a certain people scattered and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of your kingdom." Excuse me. "Their laws are different from all other peoples, and they do not keep the king's laws. Therefore, it is not fitting for the king to let them remain. If it pleases the king, let a decree be written that they be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who do the work to bring it into the king's treasuries." So the king took his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha, Hamadatha, I meant to say, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. And the king said to Haman, "The money and the people are given to you to do with them as seems good to you." All right. So the king has made this edict. He's not going to be able to go back on it. So this attempt to wipe out the Jews in this massive kingdom of Persia is going to occur. But God's going to protect the Jews in the midst of all of this. Now, the king has no idea that he's been set up on this, but he's going to find out. Here we go. So the king took a signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the son of Hamadatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. And the king said to Haman, "The money and the people are given to you to do with them as seems good to you." Then the king's scribes were called on the 13th day of the first month, and a decree was written according to all that Haman commanded. To the king's satraps, to the governors who were over each province, to the officials of all people, to every province according to its script, and to every people in their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus, it was written and sealed with the king's signet ring. And the letters were sent by couriers into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to plunder their possessions. A copy of the document was to be issued as law in every province, being published for all people, that they should be ready for that day. The couriers went out, hastened by the king's command, and a decree was proclaimed in Shushan the citadel. So the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Shushan was perplexed. So here's the setup. Haman has declared war on the Jews throughout this mass kingdom. And folks, it's the entire nation of Israel spread abroad throughout all this kingdom of Persia. All right, I got to do this for you. This is too important. And then we'll see the fulfillment of it. But let me give you Ezekiel 38 and 39. And I'm telling you that what happens when this war occurs in Esther is a fulfillment of what I'm about to read to you in Ezekiel 38 and 39. And once we get there, I'm going to show you the connection, how it all connects together. But for right now, let's just take a look at what this is saying. This is Gog and Magog. This is you'll hear a lot of prophecy people, especially all over the internet, talking about Gog and Magog being this future thing that's going to occur to modern day Israel. No, it's not. It was fulfilled in Esther. Let me put it up here. Now the word of the Lord came to me. This is Ezekiel, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog. Now, I don't know if I can find it, but in this book, The Last Days Madness by Gary DeMore, uh, Gary DeMar, I will show you how Gog and Magog is Persia of Esther. And it's in here. See if I can find that real quick. How it's connected. Oh, it's connected to Haman. Oh, okay, let me see. I may have to look. I didn't really prepare this ahead of time, so I'm gonna have to look for it. Probably in the next reading, I'll be prepared for it if I don't find it real quick here. But it's in here. I've read it several times. See, the name Gog and Magog is connected directly to Haman, and to this land. Let me let's see here. Okay. So oh, okay. Okay. Oh, there's Daniel 70 weeks. We'll get into that eventually too. Oh, Armageddon. Well, this is Armageddon. All right. Um, yeah, I'll look for it because I can't find it on the spur of the moment in here. So I don't remember exactly where it is in the book. But there is a connection in the names. Mm, he covers so much in here. It's a great book if you want to get it. Okay. I'll look for it and then I'll read it. I'll connect it later. But it's so against Gog of land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Meshesh, and Tubal, and prophesy against him and say, Thus says the Lord, Behold, I am against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh, Meshesh, and Tubal. Folks, that's Haman. I will turn you around, put hooks into your jaws, and lead you out with all your army, horses, and horsemen. And has fought with ancient tools, horses, chariots, spears, swords, things of that nature. So this is an ancient battle recorded in Ezekiel 38 and 39. And so he says, lead you out with all your army, horses and horsemen, all splendidly clothed, a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya are with them. So there's your kingdom of Persia. We don't have a kingdom of Persia today. You say, well, it's the modern countries. That's assumption in the scriptures, which I cannot approve. And that's what these modern prophecy experts do, or so-called experts, is they take a passage like this. It is clearly an ancient battle predicted by Ezekiel before the captivity of Israel and Judah, and they try to shove it 3,000 years into the future. It's not, this is the problem with modern day prophecy. Their timing is wrong. Their explanation of the passage is wrong. They get it all wrong. The whole thing. It's an ancient battle fought with ancient weapons. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya are with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all its troops. These names are connected to Persia at the time of Esther. The house of Togarmah from the far north and all its troops, many people are with you. The attack is coming from the north. Prepare yourself and be ready. Who's he talking to here? He's talking to Israel of that time before them, even before the Messiah came. He's not talking to us. We're reading their mail. He's talking to them. He's telling them, be prepared. Because it's coming. You and all your companies that are gathered about you, and be a guard for them. Anyway, I'm going to go through the whole thing. There's a judgment on Gog, which we're going to see in the book of Esther, beginning in verse 16. Gog's armies are destroyed in chapter 39. We're going to see that in the book of Esther. I'll make the name connection as soon as I could locate it. I'm going to give it one more try before I end this video. But you have to, folks, this is important. The book of Esther is very important. It's not just about Haman and Mordecai. It's a much bigger deal than that. Okay? Much bigger than that. So bear with me for just a moment. Hopefully I've caught your interest. And I want to show you how these names in Ezekiel 38 are connected to Haman. Now I'm trying to find Maybe it's in the back. Yeah, let me see. Look up Gog. No? Hmm. Haman? No? Okay. Three Harmageddon. 317. Let's see if that's it. Yes. All right. I found it. Listen to this. All right. All right. The word Armageddon. No, that's Armageddon. Okay, that's not it. Let's talk about Armageddon. Where's Gog and Magog? Armageddon was a different battle. Okay, I tried. Kills me. I can't find it. I was able to find it before. He talked about everything here. Talking about the mark of the beast, all of it. Chewing on lozenges so I don't end up coughing all through this video. Talks about rapture. By the way, there's no mention of a rapture in the scriptures. That should catch your interest. A lot of is popular in popular media like this, when it comes to Bible prophecy, it's false, folks. It's just way off base. It really is. Oh, I don't think it was this far in. No, it's got to be further out. All right, let me see here. Daniel's story. Hmm, it's killing me. I'm not finding it. Mystery Babylon. Um, I know he talks about Gog and Magog. What is this one? Rushing to judgment. Yeah, here we go. Ezekiel 38 and 39. All right, here we go. In the edge of time, let me just read this to you. Thank you for bearing with me. In the edge of time, the final countdown has begun. Patty and Paul Lalonde, he talks about some of these modern Bible scholars and how they get it wrong. They keep saying Gog and Magog and Rosh and all that is Russia. I don't need to go through all that. They try to say that Meshesh, which we just read in 38, and Tubal, they're Moscow, and they connect the sounds of the names toward the sounds of modern words, and it doesn't work, folks. You can't do that. That's not the way you interpret prophecy. Um, the belief that the Hebrew Rosh is a prophetic reference to modern day Russia has been popularized by the Old Schofield Reference Bible. He talks about that. So let me see. I got to find where he describes what it is. Okay. The best translation of Ezekiel 38:2, which states, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Meshesh, and Tubal, and prophecy against him, say, Thus says the Lord God. So that's who he's talking about. Behold, I am against you, O Gog, the prince of Rosh, Meshesh, and Tubal. And so God's pronouncing against them. All right, so who is this? The best translation of Ezekiel 38:2 is the chief head prince of Meshesh and Tubal. Since Meshesh and Tubal are normally connected, he gives a number of passages. Um, even dispensational scholars are beginning to admit that Rosh does not refer to Russia. Charles Ryrie even takes issue with the New American Standard Translation of Ezekiel 38:2 when he writes, "The prince of Rosh, better the chief prince of Meshish and Tubal, the area of modern Turkey." It's nothing modern. It was Persia at the time of Esther. So he goes on and talks about what the dispensational scholars are saying about all the modern stuff. But I need to get, for the sake of time, I need to get down to the crux of this. All right. So he's saying the battle's not future. There we go. Talks about all the things they keep saying, wooden rifles and all that. All right. So let me go get down here where it says such a time as this. If this battle is no longer a future event, then when and where in biblical history did this conflict take place? Instead of looking to the distant future, James B. Jordan believes that it is in Esther that we see a conspiracy to plunder the Jews, which backfires with the result that the Jews plundered their enemies. This event is then ceremonially sealed with the institution of the annual feast of Purim. Jordan continues by establishing context of Ezekiel 38 and 39. Ezekiel 34 states that God will act as good shepherd to Israel and will bring them back into the land. Now, this is after the captivity in Babylon and Persia, that they would go back into the land. He continues this theme in Ezekiel 36, saying that God will make a new covenant with Israel. The inauguration of this new covenant, which we can call the restoration covenant, is described in Zechariah chapter 3, where God removes the fifth from Josiah and the high priest and restores the temple and priesthood. Temple's already been restored, folks. That was the second temple when they came out of captivity in Persia. There is no future temple that needs to be restored. The third temple is the spiritual temple. It's not a physical temple. It's the one that's spoken of by Peter in First Peter and second. Well, yeah, it was First Peter. The inauguration of this new covenant. Okay, I read that. Let me see. So Zechariah 3, where God removes the fifth of Joshua, the high priest, and restores the temple and priesthood. Ezekiel continues in Ezekiel 37 with the vision of the valley of dry bones, Israel coming back together after captivity. The Spirit of God would be given a greater measure than before, though the course not as great as at Pentecost in Acts 2. And the result would be restoration of the people. No longer would there be a cultural division between Judah and Ephraim, but all would be together as a new people. At this point, Ezekiel describes the attack of Gog, G-O-G, Gog, prince of Magog, and his confederates. Ezekiel states that people from all over the world attack God's people. Well, that's the kingdom of Persia, who are pictured dwelling at peace in the land. And they were at the time. God's people will completely defeat them. However, the spoils will be immense. The result is that all nations will see the victory, and the house of Israel will know that I am the Lord their God from that day onward. That's in Ezekiel 39. Now, chronologically, this all fits very nicely. The events of Esther took place during the reign of Darius, after the initial rebuilding of the temple under Joshua, the high priest, and Zerubbabel, and shortly before rebuilding of the walls by Nehemiah. Thus, the interpretive hypotheses I am suggesting, until someone shoots it down, is this Ezekiel 34 through 37 describes the first return of the exiles under Zerubbabel and implies the initial rebuilding of the physical temple. Ezekiel 38 and 39 describes the attack of Gog, Hamon, and his confederates against the Jews. Finally, Ezekiel 40 through 48 describes in figurative language the situation as a result of the work of Nehemiah. The slaughter of Israel's enemies in Ezekiel 39 fits with the number of deaths listed in Esther 9:16, 75,000. In Esther 9:5, we read that the Jews struck all their enemies with the sword, killing and destroying. Ezekiel 38, 5 through 6 tells us that Israel's enemies come from Persia, Ethiopia, or Cush, and from the remote parts of the north, all within the boundaries of the Persian Empire of Esther's day. From Esther, we learn that the Persian Empire extended from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces. Now, that's a large territory, folks. In all, Esther, let's see, in all, Esther 8 and chapter 8, verse 9. In other words, the explicit idea that the Jews were attacked by people from all the provinces of Persia is in both passages. The parallels are unmistakable. All right. So the breakup of the Soviet Union has led some to discard the Rosh equals Russia idea. Yeah, see, anytime you do this news exegesis or this news eschatology, the Bible, it fails 100% of the time, folks. You can't look at the evening news and say, "Oh, that's fulfillment of Scripture." That never works, ever. We're not understanding the Scriptures properly. Okay. Now I've got to get over, there's a large area I got to skip because I got to get over, I need to find where he connects the names. Is this in the next chapter? No, that's appendix. God tells time. Let me go back to where he's connecting the names. That must be this chapter here. All right. No, I'm just talking about Mystery Babylon. Where did I miss that he was connecting names? I'm real here, folks. Nothing fake here. You get what you see on this channel is what you get. All right. So I think it's in all this explanation of he's debunking what they're saying. So I think it's right here. We'll read through this. But I'm pretty sure this will give it to me. The belief that the Hebrew Rosh is a prophetic reference to modern day Russia has been popularized by the old Schofield Reference Bible. This view, however, did not begin with Schofield. Dr. John Cumming, writing in 1864, said, "This king of the north I conceive to be the autocrat of Russia. That Russia occupies a place, and a very momentous place, in the prophetic world has been admitted by almost all expositors. While it is true that Russia is north of Israel, it is also true that the Bible often uses north as a designation for a geographical area that includes the northeast. For example, Babylon was east of Israel. But Jeremiah 4:6 warns that the disaster comes from the north. The same is true for the Assyrians and Persians. Is the Bible in error? Not at all. From the perspective of the Holy Land, the invaders came down from the north, even if their place of origin was actually to the east. Ezekiel is giving the direction of the invasion, not the place of the invaders' origin. Schofield says with the Lalondes supporting his errant conclusion that all agree that Russia is designated here. Certainly some expositors hold this view, but many more do not. Ernest Wilhelm Hengstenberg, obviously German, writes that the poor Russians have been here very unjustly arranged among the enemies of God's people. Rosh, as the name of a people, does not occur in all the Old Testament. More recent commentators are beginning to reject the Rosh equals Russia hypotheses. There is no evidence from the ancient Near East that a country named Rosh ever existed. Some would understand Rosh as modern Russia. Proponents of this view usually appeal to etymology based on similar sounds to the hearing between two words. Such etymology procedures are not linguistically sound, nor is etymology alone a sound hermeneutical basis on which to interpret a word. Now, hermeneutics is just the science of interpretation. The word Russia is a late 11th century AD term. Therefore, the data does not seem to support an interpretation of Rosh as a proper name for of a geographical region or country. The best translation of Ezekiel 38:2 is the chief head prince of Mashish and Tubal. Since Mashish and Tubal are normally connected, even dispensational scholars are beginning to admit that Rosh does not refer to Russia. Charles Ryrie even takes issue with the New American Standard. I read that. Okay. Um, one of the names connects directly to Hamon. Let's see. Just trying to find that part. I don't think I'll be able to. Gog is Haman. Um, if I can make that connection for you. If I can't this time, I will in the next reading of it. I will find it and give it to you. Here it says, okay, let's read this. All right. There's little in these three reasons to mandate that modern Russia is the leader of a confederate of nations to come against Israel. The nations then located in the area that is now Turkey, Syria, northern Iran, and Iraq, and western Russia are nations where Persia and Greece were in power in the 2nd century BC. In terms of Israel's location, these land masses constitute the far north. An area between the Black and Caspian Seas was certainly far north in terms of Israel's location. It may be surprising to learn that in many cases, the geographical references to north in the Bible actually refer to the east. The book of Jeremiah warns repeatedly of a coming invasion. Raise the signal to go to Zion. Flee for safety without delay, for I am bringing disaster from the north, even terrible destruction. Jeremiah 4:6. This passage is a This passage is a reference to the Babylonian invasion that resulted in the downfall of the kingdom of Judah in 586 BC. Babylon was more east than north. A study of similar passages will indicate similar geographical orientation. Even Zion is called the far north. I need a relief from my throat. There we go. The third reason offered above proves that ancient peoples are indicated since their ancient names are given. If Rosh is a prophetic name for Russia because it sounds like Russia, then why don't the other nations sound like their modern counterparts? The most damaging piece of evidence to the theory that Ezekiel 38 and 39 refer to modern Russia's invasion of Israel during the Great Tribulation is that there is no mention of Gog and Magog. or Meshesh and Tubal in Revelation 4 through 19. Yet this passage is where dispensationalists tell us the Great Tribulation is described. It's not. Revelation 20, verse 8 describes the battle of Gog and Magog as coming after the 1,000 years. Moreover, its characteristics are quite different from the Ezekiel battle. This means like Jezebel, Revelation 12, 2, 212, I'm sorry, Revelation 2:20, Sodom and Egypt, 11:8, and Babylon, 14:8. The battle of Gog and Magog is characteristic of an Old Testament event, but it is not the same event. One is past, the other is future after 1,000 years. Now, is it true that this battle will take place after the people of Israel come back into their land in the latter years? Ezekiel 38:8. In the last days, Ezekiel 38:16. First, as we saw above, there is no mention of a battle with Gog and Magog during the so-called Great Tribulation period. Second, the phrase in the latter days does not refer to events at the end of the world, but simply to future events. In Hebrew, there is no word for in the future. Moses warned Israel that evil will befall the nation in the latter days in Deuteronomy 31:29. When did this happen? Well, Judges 2:20 tells us that the anger of the Lord burned against Israel because this nation has transgressed my covenant which I commanded their fathers. Therefore, Deuteronomy 31:29 was fulfilled in Judges 2:20. So end times does not always mean the end of the world. It's the end of a particular period of time. In Jeremiah 30, many judgments were pronounced upon Israel. They were to be realized in the latter days. We know that Israel suffered greatly under the Babylonian captivity, which took place in the latter days, of which God spoke. But we also know that Israel was restored 70 years after the captivity began. Okay, it was 70 years that they were in captivity. The fortunes of Moab were to be restored in the latter days, that is, in the future. Jeremiah 48:47. See, do you see how messed up modern prophecy predictions on social media really are? It's a total ignorance of the scriptures. I'm sorry, it is. That's why I'm trying to do this channel to try and straighten some of this out. The fortunes of Elam were to be restored in the last days. And that's 49:39. The New International Version translates Jeremiah 48:47 and 49:39 as in days to come. There's no reason to suppose that these passages are predicting events thousands of years in the future. But doesn't Ezekiel 38:8 predict that Israel will be gathered from many nations? The futurists teach that Israel was scattered among many nations only after the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70 and will be regathered from the nations in the years before the Great Tribulation, which is still future. Okay, 1948 was not a true biblical gathering of Israel, and I can prove that to you as well. This is not what Scripture teaches. In Ezekiel 12:15, we are told that God scattered Israel among the nations. In Jeremiah 29:14, we are told that God will restore the fortunes of Israel and will gather them from all the nations. When was this gathering from all the nations to be accomplished? When 70 years have been completed, Jeremiah 29:10, that is, after the Babylonian captivity. That's the books of Nehemiah and Ezra. Fulfillment in those books. So there you go. There's so much more here, folks, but I can't continue going on this one right now. I will do more on this the next time we come around to Esther. I've already gone too long, way too long on this. And I will remember this location in the book, and I'll give you more on it. But suffice it to say, Rosh does not refer to Russia, modern day Russia. These names that are given in Ezekiel 38 refer specifically to Persia during the time of Esther. And it's well outlined here in among the true scholars, real scholars, not fake ones. All right, put that there so I can hold my place. I hope this is interesting to you. Now, look, I know this can be disappointing for people who are really looking forward to all of this stuff happening in the future. And you get the excitement up. Oh, that means the Lord's coming back soon, and all this kind of, and everybody gets all hyped up over that. That's not our focus, folks. And no, you shouldn't get hyped up over that because you're being taught something that's incorrect. Is there a future coming to Christ? Yes. Yes, there is. But it's not what's talked about in the Olivet Discourse. It's not what's talked about in Ezekiel 38 and 39. It's none of that. And with Daniel's prophecy, you have to be very careful. And we're going to cover all of it as we continue on with this series. I've made a lot of people upset, I'm sure. Hang in there. And let's walk through this together because, frankly, with all of the predictions that are occurring right now, as I'm making this video, the internet has gone bonkers with rapture predictions, with tribulation period predictions, with antichrist predictions, excuse me, with mark of the beast predictions, and it's all false. Come here and I'll help walk you through it and help you to understand that you can kind of settle down, relax, walk with the Lord on a daily basis, and everything's going to be fine. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time here on the C Files.